This is Got On the News. My name is Jason. This is Joseph Weeks. We're here at SRC Holdings on Union Street talking to Krisi, Director of Talent and Culture, talking about ownership.
Krisi, thank you for coming. First question, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your position with the company?
Absolutely. So as Jason said, I'm Krisi Shell, Director of Talent and Culture, and I have a really cool opportunity at SRC Holdings to work with all of our organizations. We have 12 companies under the SRC Holdings umbrella, and I work with our companies related to talent and culture, especially in our ownership culture committees, making sure that we are doing everything we can to preserve, sustain, and grow our great game ownership culture. I also work with our talent attraction efforts, connecting us to the right talent pipelines, whether that be regional high schools, colleges, universities, technical schools, to be sure that we have the right connections to find the people we need now and for our future growth. And then I have the opportunity to work with our leadership development across the companies, making sure that the people that we have within our organization have the opportunities they need to be able to grow and grab that brass ring and take the positions that they would like to have in the future.
Now, Krisi, you've used the phrase ownership so many times, and something that you're a part of, the chair of actually, is the ownership committee. And when we say ownership committee, the other thing that's thrown so often is the owner's cup. Mm-hmm. Could you give us a description of what is the owner's cup and what all goes on with that?
Absolutely. So in 2013, I joined SRC, and the ownership culture committees were established all across the companies. And in one of our very first meetings of the steering committee, the committee members were looking for a way to help us really up the game across the companies. They were all very passionate about our open book culture, our employee-owned Esop culture, and wanted to find a way to really highlight that as well as leverage our competitive spirit. So we decided to do what SRC does best and create a game that we could all compete against each other to see who was playing at the highest level. And the other thing that the Owners Cup allows us to do is really focus in on where we know we have opportunities to improve in the organization. And then we can develop, each year we spend time revising our scorecard and really just the rules of the game. And in that, we can make sure that we allocate points and opportunities to organizations that whenever they focus in and make improvements in the areas that we know that we can't. So for instance, we all know that forecast accuracy is critically important to our organization.
Sure.
So not only is it important to know when you maybe have, you're going to have a drop in your financials, sure, right? It's also important for us to have good line of sight to when an organization is going to absolutely blow it out of the water.
Yeah. Because
that takes more resources, more capital investments. So it's just as important to know when we're going to have a gap we need to fill somewhere as it is to know when we're going to have it's going to rain somewhere, right? We're going to have a windfall. Yeah. And so the Owners Cup allows us to really keep that, one, do education on why forecast accuracy is important, sure, and also track how well we're doing that across the organizations. So that is actually judged monthly based on the consolidated financials. And there's 100 points possible for each company playing the Owners Cup in each month for how accurately they forecast their monthly projections to their actuals.
Wow, impressive. Yeah. There's a lot of work into that then.
Yes, there is.
It's definitely a collaborative effort. I cannot say thank you enough to our accountants at Holdings for making that happen, because they are the wizards of making sure that our scores are intact, as well as being able to grab all that consolidated and sure, make sure that we have it right.
So Neil and the GRC team won it last year. Was there one thing that stood out that put them over the top?
It is, absolutely, and it's funny that you mentioned that, because it really was their forecast accuracy. And although we understand that in this game, that's the reason there's a lot of different components for the Owners Cup is, sure, there's not, we want to be sure that everybody feels they have the opportunity to contribute to their organization winning and getting that coveted prize of the Owners Cup. For GRC, they won in almost every category last year, but it really was that forecast accuracy that they led all through the competition, all the way, they were 100% in many months. So I have to attribute that to Kelly Mullins, because she is their CFO, and she makes sure that their forecasts are accurate, and she also understood the rules of the game of the Owners' Cup. And so she had a mind to that as they were going through. So I think it's important for us to be thinking about, how accurate our numbers are that we report into our huddles. So that way we have that good line of sight, and make sure that it's forward-looking, right? So if we know that there may be a change in a particular program, we got to be sure we're reporting those right numbers in the huddles, and that our accountants have that information to roll in, so that they can give those accurate forecasts going forward.
That sounds great. Sounds like this year could really be up to just about anybody to win it this year, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's
Yes.
great.
So actually, when you say that, so
Uh-huh.
if you want to have a kind of a hint of some ways that a company might win,
Sure.
so obviously, I mentioned forecast accuracy, that's important. We actually added a couple other elements this year. We have know and teach through 4 months of the year. So your ownership culture committee chairs are going to be bringing in the education they're doing in their organizations and sharing that with the other OCC chairs when we have our steering committee meetings.
Sure.
So that's a great chance to kind of see that education happening across the organization. But the really cool part of that
Yeah.
is the fact that that is helping us all to be better business people.
Absolutely.
By having that education in our companies, so that they can understand what's important about Esop, what's important about mini games, and what's important about our numbers themselves, and really understanding the huddle and the P&L. So the thing I would say, though, is that we actually added bonus points categories this year.
Okay.
So it's just like, when you were in high school or any time in school, there's extra credit available. If you
There you
don't
go.
do the extra credit, you're really going to shoot yourself in the foot, right?
Sure,
So
sounds
I
like
would
it.
encourage everybody to pay attention to those bonus opportunities
Yeah.
and do the extra credit.
That sounds great. Well, Krisi, we'd like to thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you and everybody else for the annual shareholder meeting on June 26th.
See you there.
Thank you.